Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder. Not the video I had planned to do tonight, but I wanted to jump on Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives thread, the chosen few, while it was still running hot. I've seen a ton of responses to this already. It's proved really popular, and I can see why. And I found myself every time I was watching one of you guys' videos, I was questioning the albums I picked out. I picked out some straight away, and I must have changed it 6 or 7 times, an album here and an album there, and I don't even know if the list I've got now matches up to what I originally thought it would at the start. What made this such a challenge and so interesting for me is it's not another one of those grab your 10 best albums videos, although I don't know, some people seem to have interpreted it that way. I didn't interpret it that way. To me, this was a case of something's happened, I need to get out quick and I need to grab 10 albums, and those 10 albums will be my entire music collection for who knows, short term, long term. So what I was basing my criteria on was I didn't want to just pick 10 heavy metal albums or 10 thrash albums or 10 albums of the same type, because depending on what mood I'm in, I want to listen to different types of music, whether it be upbeat, whether it be slow, whether it be fast. So I wanted a collection of 10 albums that would suit whatever mood I was in at the time to listen to something. What immediately sprung to mind was my sort of 10 or so favourite albums. And my 10 favourite albums list does chop and change slightly, but the top 7 pretty much remain the same. I'm going to quickly go through those just to show what I'm actually leaving behind. I've decided I'm not going to take any of these albums. I love them all dearly. I know them all back to front, inside out. Everything about them, and I can close my eyes and I can just hear and think about it. And so I'm taking these with me up here and in here. And also, I don't necessarily listen to these regularly because I'm so familiar with them. And that is Anthrax, Spreading the Disease. These are in no particular order. The Wedding Present, George Best. Believe it or not, Iron Maiden, Live After Death, my first ever heavy metal record, I would leave behind. I know this, everything, even down to all the audience participation bits. I can just recite it off the top of my head. So it's coming with me, but only in my head. Ramones, Rocket to Russia. You mentioned this one yourself, Darcy, Appetite for Destruction. Everyone knows I'm a big Manic Street Preachers fan. The Holy Bible, my favourite album of theirs. I don't need to take it with me because I'm taking it with me. And Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. So those 7 have pretty much been a fixture in my top 10 for a long time, and the other 3 can chop and change. But let's focus on the ones I would take. I'm going to say it would be a mixture of heavy metal, sort of traditional heavy metal, thrash, stoner doom, indie, and just a few different bits and pieces here and there. So I would take an Iron Maiden album, and this might surprise a few of you, but I would take A Matter of Life and Death. This is the album that really got me back into listening to heavy metal after many years of listening purely to more sort of indie rock. It's a nice long album. It's got some killer tracks on here. Different World, These Colours Don't Run, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, The Longest Day, For the Greater Good. I just really enjoy it, and I could listen to this at any time. You might have been expecting me to take an 80s Maiden record, but again, I know those so well, and I have such good memories of them. I could live without them for a short time. I'm kind of expecting that this zombie apocalypse thing that's happening is going to blow over, and I can maybe come back and being one of the only human beings left on Earth, I'll have my pick of all the record shops and everyone's collections, so I just go around their houses looking for food and records and things. So I'll get the others back eventually. Number 2, I need a good traditional heavy metal album. You're going to get to see all these, aren't you, before I show them. Let's put them down here. Don't want to give them all away. But yeah, so I'd have to take some Judas Priest, straight up heavy metal. Again, this is an album that I've only really got to appreciate over the last few years. It's not one I had in the 80s. In the 80s, when I was really getting into heavy metal and I thought I knew it all, I was only familiar, I think, with British Steel, Turbo, and Ram It Down. Those are the three albums I had. I didn't really have any friends that were into metal, so I wasn't really big on tape trading and getting to hear stuff. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't buy a lot either. So gems like Defenders of the Faith, I didn't really get into until about the last 5-6 years. But it's a killer heavy metal album, straight up heavy metal, and I would need some of that in my life. Number 3, I'm also a huge Anthrax fan. So Spread the Disease is my favourite album, but again, it's playing in my head now just as I think about it. Part of Darcy's conditions were no compilations, which scuppered me for one album, and up to 3 live albums. So for an Anthrax, I decided to go with a live album, and I had a choice. I've got Thrash in Texas, which is more of an official bootleg, or what was a bootleg, which was from 1987. But I went for Chili on Hell because it's got a great mix of the usual stuff at Anthrax. Anthrax have a pretty much a straight playlist that they play at every gig, and it's mostly based around the Among the Living album. But this also has a track or 2 from Spreading the Disease. It has 2 or 3 tracks from Worship Music, which is the album that we've had out at the time, which I really love as well. Especially has Fight Until You Can't, which is obviously zombie themed as well. So yeah, I would need some Anthrax, and this is a is it a double, or yeah, it's a double or triple, I don't know. It's a double album, and it has a lot of my favourites on there to keep me in the Anthrax mood. Probably the one of the albums that's been included by most people that show in metal, and Justice for All. I picked it because it's a nice long double album. I still think Master of Puppets is my favourite Metallica album, but I know it pretty much back to back, and sometimes I think I enjoy And Justice for All a little bit more. It has some absolute, killer classics on here, and I think if I've got Anthrax, I would need a bit of Metallica as well. So, And Justice for All. Now that's kind of the heavy metal side done, and it's covered in about 3 or 4 albums, and considering most of the stuff I listen to is heavy metal, it was really hard to kind of just narrow it down to a handful, or less than a handful, when I wanted to cover so many other types of music that I enjoy as well. The single stoner doom, but more on the sort of stoner rock side, I went back and forth across this, but I had to have one in my collection, and I decided to go for Mothership because it is such a great album. This is a self-titled album, and songs like Hallucination, Cosmic Rain, Angel of Death, Eagle Soars, Lunar Master. It's just such a killer album. It covers the slightly doomier, the fuzzy riffs. It covers the stoner side, but it's also quite upbeat as well, which I quite like. More hard rock side, something a little bit different. This is one from really that reminds me of my childhood as well, and that would be the Blue Oyster Cult, Cultosaurus Erectus. Takes me right back to my childhood. This songs like Black Blade, Monsters, Deadline, The Marshall Plan. That was a sort of a song about a guy becoming a rock star, and that was a real tennis racket. air guitar number from when I was a child. Fallen Angel, Hungry Boys, absolutely killer album, and one that I would play a lot out of these 10, I have to say. Because if I could have had a greatest hits album, I would have gone for Queen's greatest hits. I used to say that's all I ever needed from Queen, and it certainly has all the really cult classics on there. But I have got really into this album recently, A Night at the Opera, and because it is so different from most of this other stuff I would listen to, it's very jovial. It's happy. It's almost cabaret in places, and it's just a really good feel-good album for me. And I think if I wanted to, get a little bit of, get a bit of a lift, also a bit of relaxation as well, I would reach for Queen, A Night at the Opera. Now down to the last three. Mentioned massive wedding present fan. George Best is an album that is imprinted on my head, but I would take the follow-up with me, which is Bizarro, because it has some absolutely killer tracks on here. Now this I think is 30 years old this year, and I believe that they're doing another 30th anniversary tour. They've done two 30th anniversary tours the last 2 years of the previous two albums, where they play the album from start to finish, and I cannot wait to hear Gedge play this one all the way through. Gedge sings his lyrics I just love. It's almost on a parallel with Morrissey, I'd say, in the way he's able to tell a story, and a lot of the songs are sort of songs about unrequited love, but from the man's perspective, where he's either done something wrong or the girlfriend's kind of left him, and anywhere else it would probably be quite depressing, but it really kind of works. And it's the style of Wedding Present, certainly in this era, was very sort of jangly indie pop rock music. I always kind of called it sort of thrash pop, and songs like Brass Neck, Kennedy, What Have I Said Now, and Take Me, which is about 9 minutes long. Absolutely killer stuff. Granada Island as well, cool. But yeah, brilliant album for when I'm not in the heavy metal mood. I mentioned Manic Street Preachers, my favourite album from them being mine's gone blank. Holy Bible. But I would take something different, and I would take this one simply because this is Postcards from a Young Man. This is their 10th album. When was this? 2010. I would take this one simply because I only got it last week. It was a birthday present, so lucky me. So the significance of their 10th album, not that I'm just pointing at Tim Roth, actor's belly button, is they made a conscious effort to release a more radio friendly album. And it really works. It's not poppy. It's got more of a sort of, I guess, a 70s AOR pop rock type feel to it. But it's, as usual with Manic Street Preachers, it's really well produced. Singles on here, It's Not War, Just the End of Love. A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun. Is it Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses plays on that one. Who else is on here? Ian McCulloch's on here. He's on what was he on? Some Kind of Nothingness, and John Cale, Velvet Underground's on also Intoxication. But I've heard this album many times on CD, and my sister got it for me for my birthday, so very happy to get that. But I would take that because I've not spun the vinyl before, and I love the album. It's a great one. And last but not least, I need some Ramones in my life. There are so many to choose from. I love everything, just about everything the Ramones have done, and it's such a shame that only the 70s era, the first 2, 3, 4 albums get all the credit, and I like some of the latest stuff. I can't take a compilation, but I can take another live album, so I will take Loco Live. This is from 1991, and it covers most of the great 70s classics. It's a double album, but it also has some of the 80s stuff on here. Psychotherapy, I Believe in Miracles, which is off Brain Drain, Pet Cemetery, Don't Bust My Chops, Palisades Park, Ignorance is Bliss, yeah, but also sort of Surfing Bird, Warthog, Animal Boy. It's great. I mean, there are so many Ramones bootlegs and albums that are being released left, right, and centre, and they're all from sort of the late 70s period. And I'd like to see a lot more bootlegs released if they had them from the 80s, because they were still going strong. They still had some great material. But I'll take this one because it's a double album and it's got a lot of great tracks and covers more than just the usual 70s stuff. So there we go. I don't expect many of you would have expected me to have picked a lot of those, but with these 10 albums here, I think I have a diverse enough collection to keep me going through the apocalypse. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've actually guessed any of these or have heard of any of these, or if you haven't, do check some of them out. That's it. See ya. Bye.